Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to give you a little bit of time for us to come live and for people to join us, but I want to welcome everyone here with us at Habitat for Humanity, New York City, and our exciting first ever 2-day Women Build Summit. So I'm going to let you talk as we sort of get warmed up. My role today is really just to welcome everybody and to say thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this exciting initiative. You may or may not know that over 80% of our Habitat for Humanity homeowners in New York City are single female head of households. And that's not really what Women Build is about. What Women Build is really about women coming together to be part of that community. I mean, I might be biased, given that I am one, but we are a force to be reckoned with. And so really, this is about women from across multiple sectors coming together and really getting to know each other in a new and exciting way. So we like to bring together opportunities for conversation, opportunities for bridging gaps, opportunities for unpacking and having authentic conversation. I tell a story a lot about, I'm not a native New Yorker. I'm a Canadian, Michigander, New Jerseyan New Yorker. And so lest I say A or something that identifies me outside of my geographic area. But when I came to New York 6 years ago now, what I found was I was going to a ton of events. I was, coming into events and I was effectively going and engaging and, I'm not shy. I was chatting with people at lunch tables, et cetera. But then I would leave those events and I hadn't really broken through or forged any relationships or been able to really sort of unpack and have authentic conversation. And so one of the things that we've tried to do as we've moved Women Build to the virtual platform is really engage people in authentic conversation. And what that means is we don't script things. We just, throw out some prompts and people ask questions and respond. And hopefully some magic ensues. Not hopefully, it always magic ensues. So we are so glad and so honored and so proud that you have been here. You have agreed to spend some time with us today and engage in this authentic conversation. It is one of my wonderful tasks today to introduce you to the moderator, one of my favorite New Yorkers ever, and someone that I met very early on my journey at New York. And just to let you know who I am, once you meet somebody like Diana Reyna, and you're going to get to meet her in a minute, you want to keep her close. And so we are very proud I'm very proud to say that she is actually a member of our board of directors today. And but she has a litany of experience, and one among many of her boasts is deputy borough president of Brooklyn, little place you might have heard of. So is a virtual powerhouse. So she is going to be our moderator. I'm going to introduce her in a minute or two, and then we're going to bring on an exciting slate of women to join her in authentic conversation. But this work today happens not by accident. There's a lot of behind the scenes work. When you think about work on a Habitat for Humanity site, you often think about the paintbrushes and the hammers, but there's a lot of work that goes into this around volunteerism, around engaging in a Women Build Council. So a big shout out to the Women Build Council, who were instrumental in spreading the news about this event, in engaging us, a host of wonderful speakers today and tomorrow. And they meet regularly and they talk about ways in which we can elevate our message in and among women. And again, Women Build is about bringing together a network of women. It's about women reaching out, standing side by side with the more than 80% of single female head of households that are homeowners in New York City. But it's really about celebrating the real raw power of women in the world. You want something done, get a woman to do it. Now, listen, we're not about excluding men. I always like to say, because it's called Women Build doesn't mean that if you're a guy, you can't come out and build. You can. You can lift the heavy stuff, you can make the coffee, you can do the things that we need doing. I'm being facetious. It isn't about excluding men, but it is about elevating women. One other group that I need to thank before I introduce you to Diana and get this party started, as the kids say, is this kind of work doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen without support of our wonderful donors. And so I want to just give a quick shout out to our sponsors today. Big thank you to RTW Foundation, to Mega Contracting, to EQT Partners, and to ASHRAE for their commitment to Habitat for Humanity in New York City and our work in the virtual events. So RTW Foundation, wonderful. Look these foundations up. Great work that they're doing in New York City. Mega Contracting, love them. GC Extraordinaire, EQ2, EQT, easy for me to say, Partners, and ASHRAE. And ASHRAE is a trade association of heating and air conditioning professionals. Wonderful, wonderful trade organization that does tremendous work. So thank you for your support. And if you can, we'll look forward to seeing you in the networking room later on in the broadcast today. And if you can, join us again tomorrow for another slate of another wonderful conversation. Easy for me to say. I better start, it's time for me to stop talking and get the professionals on board here. So I am going to take this moment to welcome our first special guest, former Deputy Brooklyn Borough President, Women Build panelist, and current member of Habitat New York City's Board of Directors, Diana Reyna. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you. I'm losing the ability to speak, so it's time for me to hand the microphone over to you.
I'm going to give you a break. Just take a seat, relax, and let us just show from here until 12. It is such a pleasure.
And I'll go get a coffee and I'll be sitting back in the audience and listening passionately. So thank you for being with us today. I'll let you take it away, Diana.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm so excited to be here with you all. Hello to the Women Build and to all of our affordable housing advocates joining us here today. Welcome to day one of the Women Build Summit. I am excited to join this year as a moderator. I got to join as a panelist in 2019, right before the pandemic, Women Build Luncheon, and it was an awesome experience, being able to fill a room with so many strong women with opinions, unapologetic. We have a powerful and inspiring conversation for you today. Please join me in welcoming Ariana J, our newest Habitat New York City homeowner. We're so proud to have her join us, and this is not the first time that she joins us in conversation, but she's become homeowner extraordinaire in New York City. Shana Hennigan from the Women Build Council member. She's one of our queen bees, that there's a story behind that, and I hope she gets the chance to share with us. And Angelina Fung, who from the very beginning has sunk herself into what is supporting Habitat through the Habitat Young Professionals Board co-chair. We are so thrilled to have you all here. Let's start with Ariana. Ariana, can you just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It's such a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for that gracious introduction, Diana. My name's Ariana. I'm a Bronx resident, born and raised. As always, I come from a really large, loud but lovable Jamaican family, and I have such an amazing love for cities, especially for how to make cities affordable and dynamic places to live that are accessible for everyone, young and old, of all age ranges and ethnic backgrounds. I love nonprofit work, which is part of the reason why I'm especially fond of Habitat NYC. And I also work for a nonprofit helping to get much needed resources to teachers throughout the country.
What nonprofit is that, Ariana?
Donors Choose.
Nice. I used to support them. I believe in all the work that they do. Our teachers could not do their work if it wasn't for the supplemental support that Donors Choose provides students and their classrooms. So thank you for that. I'd like to ask Shana if you could introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Diana. And I'm so thrilled to be here today with these amazing panelists, Ariana and Angelina. Very much looking forward to this conversation. I'm Shana Hennigan. I've been now for quite a number of years, and I'm very excited to take on the role as co-chair for the council this year. So very excited to continue with that mission. Habitat for Humanity has been just such an important part of my life over the past 7-8 years, and the Women Build experiences, working with my council, and really just continuing to support women in this fantastic city, providing affordable housing for women to live, for their families to grow in a healthy, supportive environment. So I just love the mission of the council, love the mission of the organization, and just am thrilled to share the Zoom stage with these fabulous women this morning.
Thank you so much for that, Gina. And I know when you get the bug, the habitat bug, it's hard to shake it off. Once you come in, there's no looking back. And so I'd like to ask Angelina to say a few words. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for having me here today. It is a pleasure also to be sharing the stage with all these incredible women. My name is Angelina, and I'm serving as co-chair, incoming co-chair for Habitat Young Professionals Board, so also known as HYPE. So you refer to me, you hear me refer to them as HYPE throughout the time. So I've been involved with Habitat ever since I was little. And then, when I first moved to New York about 1.5 years ago, also 2019, before the pandemic happened, wanted to reach out to a group of people, individuals who are passionate about giving back, surround myself with young professionals who has, one same mission and a goal in serving their community. So I reached out to Habitat, and here I am. I, like you said, been bit by the bug, essentially, and I've been here since, and I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. Into what would be the Habitat family, whether that's through HYPE or the Women Build Council or as a homeowner. So if you could just tell us, what was the first thing that you would suggest to someone to become a part of HYPE?
To become part of HYPE, absolutely.
Sure.
So yeah, so the first thing I would say, definitely reach out. We are very friendly. We are a pretty big team of about 30 board members who are trying to work to support Habitat NYC. So many different avenues. You have projects that you can join just as a volunteer. We're all volunteer based. And, as you advance through, HYPE provides a wonderful, wonderful platform to step up and be a leader. And then you'll get the chance to advance the board as a board member, as well as, anything above that, and then be able to have more exposure to, increase your advocacy for Habitat NYC.
That is fabulous. And, this is really about women advocating for women through this organization that we so love. Habitat New York City has done tremendous work building one unit at a time with volunteers, the generosity of our donors. And so the work never stops. It's all year round. Our audience, if you're interested, please reach out to us. We welcome, we have open doors, and there is something to do for everyone. Shana, tell us about, what does women advocating for women mean or look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's really quite a broad and all-encompassing approach. And that's what I love so much about Women Build. It's more than just one day going into a property and putting up drywall or, painting ceilings. It's really leveraging your passion for supporting women, giving them a leg up, giving them a network, giving them a support system. And, especially as we look to grow the Women Build Council, we look to grow the organization, there's so many ways we can do that beyond just hammers and nails, whether that is advocacy, whether that is being part of the broader volunteer network, whether that is being somebody who could offer career advice to women in our council, just increasing all of these opportunities where women act in this supportive way, help each other, use our networks, use our talents, use our skills to continue to offer that helping hand. And with that helping hand, all of us get to grow and, advance. So I think that's what Habitat and Women Build mean for me. And that's truly what I've experienced. I've met such amazingly talented and passionate women across the network who use their talents and skills in so many different ways. And on a personal level, that has just made my life so much richer, and I'm very thankful for it.
I'm so glad you said that, Shana, because I understand and have walked that journey the way you described it, right? Networking, it doesn't come easy for women. And when we have a space that's safe, that allows you to relax and get to know, ask the questions that perhaps you're not very comfortable asking in a public forum, Habitat creates this wonderful calendar of events that women can come from all walks of life and just dig in, be able to just talk to one another and share their stories. And this is what we're doing here today, sharing our stories so that we can have an impact in the lives of other women who've never experienced Habitat. And having said that, Ariana, becoming a homeowner doesn't happen overnight with Habitat. So can you just walk us through some of the things that you did, that were required, some of the things that people may not understand what Habitat would want from you as a potential homeowner, so that you are standing on firm ground by the time you own that home, you open that door, and describe that feeling of owning that first home.
Wow. That's such a great question, Diana, because I think a big misconception is that, Habitat just gives away homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely not the case. There is work required. And my mom actually is the person who introduced me to Habitat, because she saw something in a newspaper, not a newspaper, one of those like an online journal that she was subscribed to. And she saw the ad for Sydney House and that Habitat was accepting applications. So my parents said, look, we're selling our house and you need to find somewhere to go.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. Do what you need to do. So I said, okay, I'm a young woman living in New York City. I can't afford rent. What am I going to do? I had a minor freak out. And when she found this ad, it was really familiar to me because I had studied about Habitat when I was in school. I studied urban planning, and I had loved city work and did a ton of volunteer work. And I had heard about Habitat, wrote a paper about it. And I said, okay, this is my chance. It's coming full circle. How do I get involved in this organization? So I applied, just threw my hat in the ring. It was an extensive application with tons of requirements, but I did it. I put the work in. It was a lottery-based system. So when my application was pulled, the real work began of the interviews and all of that extensive process. But once I was approved, still at that point, you don't just get the apartment or get the place. We had to do sweat equity, which was the work required to make sure that when you stepped foot in your house, when you closed on your apartment or wherever that place was, that you were secure, you were on firm ground. So we had to take virtual classes because I went through it during COVID. So we took virtual classes with the Habitat NYC team, learning about the history of the organization, learning about what a mortgage is, how to set a budget, how much money should I be putting aside every month to make sure that once I do close, I'm not underwater and drowning. What does it mean to be part of a community, to own a home in a community? What does it mean to get involved in your local, to know your local political candidates, to know who your borough president is and all of the other people who are making the decisions about your community? How do I get involved with those people and doing the research? We also had, I also participated in thankathons to thank our donors and board members. I think Peter was the first person I called. I was like, hi, Peter, thank you so much for everything you do.
Peter's always working,
always working. So it wasn't just about, it's not just about giving away homes. There's work required. Right. And the last thing we did was a New York City, a homeowner education course online that really taught us what a mortgage is, what's equity, what's escrow, what's all of that stuff, so that when you're going through the process, and it was beautifully timed so that at each phase of the process, we had classes and instruction to make sure that we were well guided and well grounded throughout the process. And then at the end, when you close and you pick up your keys and you walk in for the first time, it's just, it was an amazing feeling that I can't describe, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And having your family there for the first time in your home for a meal or whatever that is was just incredible. And I say this all the time, but I'm just so eternally grateful. Thank you so much, Habitat NYC.
You gave me goosebumps, and there's a tear that's accumulating. So I'm going to try to contain myself because I've seen the design of Sydney House. It is remarkable. Just the delicate, intricate details, the energy efficiency of the entire building so that every homeowner is living a true, affordable, in perpetuity lifestyle, so that owning a home in New York City is not going to bankrupt you. So I can understand what you're valuing here. And to be able to say that on this month of May, we're celebrating Mother's Day, I just want to thank your mom because she knew exactly what she was doing. She guided you without you even knowing. And perhaps, you know, that pushing you off that ledge is all we need sometimes, to know that we have someone supporting us in the background, but we're going to land firmly on the ground. We're not doing this alone. And I'm sure that with all of your peers during this preparation period really allowed you to build that confidence necessary to know that you can do this.
Absolutely. And to pass on that knowledge to my peers.
That's right.
When I learned something new, I was on the phone. We were in Zoom chats with my friends, with my girls, and we were like, listen, we need to learn this. This is education that needs to trickle down. It's not just about me. It's not just about the people who have access right now. It's about expanding that access to as many women as possible. So really just passing on that knowledge to whoever I can.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I want to encourage those of you viewing to please join us in the chat. Tell us your experience. Are you a homeowner? Have you ever thought about becoming a homeowner? What stops you from being a homeowner? Ariana never probably even thought that that was going to be something in the near future. But until her parents were letting her know, look, we're making our lives somewhere else. We can't take care of what would be the den anymore. It's your turn. And so sometimes that's what it takes. Maybe it's something else. But share your experience with us on the chat. You took the words right out of my mouth when you shared what you learned through this experience with Habitat, which is so incredible and so honest to be able to say to your peers, right? This is something I'm going through. Learn from me, and encouraging them to do the same. Financial literacy, right? We take that for granted. What does that really mean? Equity, you know, how does that work for you? These are all conversations that we can't take for granted and assume people know. And to be able to, especially as a woman of color, to have that conversation so that we can empower and lift other women, that's a remarkable responsibility. And you're in the thick of things. So thank you. I'm going to try to now move on to asking women in the world. How have women changed the world already, do you believe, Shana? Like, just give me an example of what you've been tracking that has moved you, or you try to look at from a perspective of a distance, right? But yet living here in New York City and understanding, you know, the struggles of New York City.
Yeah, I think where I see women really changing the world is offering our voices in different perspectives and not doing things the same old way. Because the same old way hasn't always worked all that well. You know, and I think as women, you know, really in the last 20, 30 years have really found their voices and said, no, I'm going to have a seat at the table. I'm going to offer this different perspective. No, we don't always need to have an aggressive approach. We can have a collaborative approach. We can listen to different voices and learn. And think through things in new ways. I think that's so important. And that's where I'm so encouraged, giving women, the confidence and the courage to contribute their opinions, their thoughts, all of that. I mean, there's so much exciting stuff has happened. We have, our first female vice president, woman of color. And you just think about how that has changed the political conversation so much. We have the first female CEO of a large Wall Street bank. All of these things are just, I think, so encouraging, so impactful, and I think are going to really open up the world to change and looking at things in new ways, collaborative ways, and just offering a different perspective, to hopefully make the world a better place.
You're absolutely right. That political landscape, as we know it, there's no reason we can't now see ourselves becoming president. Not that we ever didn't see ourselves becoming president, right? But we have to collaborate with one another to make things happen. And there's such strength in numbers, right? We want to be able to take that strength and turn it into something fabulous. And all it takes is for us to unite, to share what are some of those barriers that keep us out of in the know. Angelina, tell us, what do you believe women are changing in the world, or someone that you believe is changing the world? How have you changed the world?
That's a great question. Thank you, Diana. I think, everyone here today, right, and all our viewers here, people who are taking their time out of their day, being proactive and supporting an organization that, as a woman or even men, you are actively changing the world. Everyone around us, we're starting to see the perspective, like Shana mentioned, that, a woman can bring to the table that traditionally are things that men could miss. So I think it's critical that we are, slowly introducing and really, really changing that landscape of things. And I think personally, actually through Habitat, I've really learned to find my voice as well. Like what Shana said, it's, I've really had the platform to step up and to, feel confident in what I want to say and find my passion within, advocacy and with supporting other women, young professionals, and empowering others to do the same for themselves. So that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. It's not easy to know what your interests are, or how do you believe you're changing the world. And everyone wants to have impact. And trying to value, there is no small or big thing, but the actual action of and the intention of playing a role in changing the world, right? We want to see it better than what we found it. And I think all of you are doing just that. I want to, try to express or extract what would be your best advice in what is leadership, right? How do you lead? What's your best leadership quality or skill?
I can start. There is something that I always think about. I think as a woman, especially, I work in finance, and definitely a big men's world out there. And, if you don't self-advocate, if you don't speak up for yourself, you will not get hurt. That's that's
Amen.
The bottom of it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. So, even before you get others advocating for you, you really have to, recognize your strengths, recognize, who you are and the value you bring to the team. And then, be proactive about recording those things down, and then, be able to have a seat at the table and step up and take the responsibility. If there's an opportunity and no one has said anything, step up and go right ahead. And
it's yours.
You never know where that's going to lead you. Exactly.
Absolutely. And you work in finance.
Mm-hmm.
So what's an advice that you've received that has really opened doors for you, that had you not listened, you don't know if you would be at this point in your life, in your specific industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So with, like you said, working in finance, it is a very complex world to navigate. The biggest advice is to not be afraid to, shake up the room, be able to step in and have an opinion. a lot of so at UBS, we actually have a lot of amazing women seminars as well. And everyone, same thing, self-advocate, because you really, really need to promote yourself, be your own promoter, and then, you'll get others' attention. So
that's fabulous.
mhm.
And Ariana, what was one of the greatest influences in your life?
By far it was my grandmother. So she immigrated here from Jamaica, and she left her family in Jamaica to come here. And
How old was she?
she was, I believe, 22 or 23. I tried
and at that time, that's not considered very kosher, as we say, and that's an avant-garde type of woman.
Yes, definitely. And for reference, she's 92 now. So she has a long history behind her, but she just has this boldness, this fearlessness about her that I've always wanted to emulate. And something she told me early on in my career was, say yes and figure it out later. Just say yes and figure it out later. That's probably the best advice, because so many of us turn down opportunities, including myself. I've turned down, opportunities because, I'm not qualified, or I don't think I can really do it, or I don't check every single bullet point on this job description. And or that project, I can't work on that project. And she just leap, just say yes and figure it out later. Stop analyzing every little thing. Another thing she told me was, this is going to sound a little crass, but she said, go into every opportunity with the confidence of a mediocre white man.
You could not get more specific.
And you cannot get more specific, right? Like just owning it. Owning what you bring to the table. Stop questioning your value, stop questioning your worth, and just own a room. And even if you have to fake it till you make it, right? Fake the confidence until you actually feel the confidence, but in the process, say yes, and you'll figure everything out later. And no doubt you'll deliver, because you're you, because we're women and we bring it and we own it. And she lived that throughout her whole life. She immigrated here when she was really young. She worked really hard to buy, when she could afford a place. That's when she sent for the rest of her family, her 2 young kids and her husband, who met her here. A few years later, they were able to afford to buy their own home here in the Bronx. So that's why I'm Bronx bled, Bronx born and raised. And that house is still standing. And it's actually just about 10 minutes away from Sydney House. So I've always lived in the same neighborhood. My mom ended up buying a house soon. When she left her home, she bought a house like literally 3 blocks away. And now I'm a homeowner at Sydney House for
3rd generation.
3 generations. And it's amazing. So they were my first example of home ownership. And I always looked at them and said, I want that. How do I get that? And the way I got that was to say yes and figure it out later.
You heard that, ladies and gentlemen. You have to just say yes and figure it out as you go along, because we paralyze ourselves when we start thinking about it too much, to the point where we make no decision. And so I want to hear from the public. Write in the chat, who was your greatest influence? What advice would you give? Or what advice have you received that you want to share with others? These are the small details that will matter and impact someone in the room. And that's what this Women Build Summit is all about. I truly appreciate your grandmother, Ariana, because my mom, when she was in her 20s, after the Civil War, or in the midst of a civil war in the Dominican Republic, she happened to say, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here. I need better opportunities. This is too dangerous. And came to the United States, to Brooklyn, nonetheless, and settled what would be in the south side of Williamsburg, the background where what you see here. And that's where she lived her whole life. To be able to then meet my dad and bring him from the Dominican Republic in one of her trips back home. And one of the greatest challenges was not necessarily having the confidence to buy a house, but convincing my dad that they could. My mom was the one who would push and push and push. We can do this. Don't stop me from wanting to do better for ourselves, right? And she would save every penny. And it took what would be perhaps her raising 3 girls and then having an army to gain up on him, to convince him, no more excuses, we're doing this together. And they finally bought their first home in Bushwick, which took them probably 20 years to save and have that down payment and become financially literate. She's lived here more so than she's lived in her own country. And that is the immigrant story that every immigrant wants to achieve. It's owning a piece of America as an immigrant. That is a big deal. That is a story unto itself. And to see that you're 3rd generation is impressive. So thanks, Grandma, because if it wasn't for you, you would not have set the example or set the bar as high as you did. Now, Shana, I want to take this opportunity to just ask you, was creating positive change always a goal, or did it follow a longer path for you? We're going to get into the personal space here.
Yeah, so for me, supporting women and creating opportunities for them has always been something that's very important for me, from high school to college to early in my career in finance. And, trying to make things more equitable, trying to give people opportunities. That's been extremely important. And when I think about people who've had an impact in my life, people that I've looked up to, particularly the woman who got me involved in Habitat for Humanity, my neighbor, Martha Parrish, who's on the board with Habitat.
We love Martha.
We every morning were the 2 ladies down on the treadmill at 6:30 in the morning. And when I say this, Martha was in her 70s. So it's extremely impressive that she was keeping up with me there on the treadmill every morning. And we just got talking and got to be friends. And she kind of had a funny little proposal for me one day. And she said, Shana, I was wondering if you'd do something for me. She's like, I'd love to get a team together to do a Habitat Women's Build. And she's like, I can help you with the fundraising. My friends have checkbooks. The only problem is we've got artificial knees and hips. So if you can get your friends together, we can build a team. And as she talked to me more and more about Habitat and how supportive of women it was, with, as you mentioned, over 80% of our homeowners are female-headed households. The idea of promoting financial literacy, because I truly believe financial literacy and the independence that comes with that, that's what gives women freedom to get out of bad situations, to make choice, to be fully autonomous in their lives. And as she gave me this framework, I was all in. And so we did that first build, and this ties back to your Queen Bee question. We just kind of, the girls got together and started thinking, well, we're a team. Martha's our leader. She's the Queen Bee. We're building this hive. And, we got our t-shirts made. Each of us had our names, from Dancing Queen to Mississippi Queen, with Martha, the Ultimate Queen. And that was the first build. And from that point on, that's when I got really bitten by the Habitat bug. And it's become such an important part of my life, how I got involved in Women Build, because it really hits on all the things for me that are so important with positive change in the city, positive change in the life of an individual family, and positive change for me personally to get to be part of an organization like this. It's something that's really powerful. And, as I mentioned at the start, it's something I'm very grateful to have had as an important aspect of my life the past however many years.
Well, we appreciate, Shana, that you actually took the advice of Martha, that you were so invigorated by her own passion, right? At her age, to be able to be so involved. And considering that she was supposedly retired, she was working more than ever. And especially for Habitat. So you have an artificial hip, doesn't matter. Nothing stops a woman from trying to play a role with Habitat. We welcome you even more so because your wisdom, your connection, your history, your motivation, there's a generation passed on of knowledge that we are hungry for, that next generation will value and gain from. We have this opportunity to be able to pass it forward. And I appreciate that story about Martha being the ultimate queen, because when you meet her, you understand exactly what that means. I happened to meet Martha when I did the global DR trip with Habitat. And we went to my parents' native land of Dominican Republic to build in these very, out of the city, long dirt roads, communities that are built organically, and families that are living in, huts, shacks made out of whatever materials they find, and saving what would be their earnings of the day, little by little, trying to build out a sturdier home. And there was Martha, eager to work on lifting what would be a barrel of cement. Martha, you can't do that. Don't tell me I can't do it. Don't tell me I cannot do it. So can't is not a word in Habitat amongst women. There is nothing we cannot do. My greatest moment was learning how to use a jackhammer on a build site. That to me was my ultimate moment. I want to hear from Angelina. What was your ultimate moment with Habitat?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked me that question. Actually, so I used to live in Hong Kong, and with Hong Kong, I was involved with Habitat International, had some opportunities to go overseas in China to do different builds, and we actually helped farm as well. I just listening to you talk about your global village experience brought me right back. I was reflecting upon my time there, and some of the best memories I've had was with Habitat, New York City or not. I went when I was in middle school with another school, the American school in this part of China that I was with. We just went out there. We were all eager kids, wanted to help, and the most beautiful moment, it was one of the older men whose home we were help preserving as well. He came in just with a ton of water bottles for the volunteers. And we're like, he's this tiny man. And we were just so touched because he was so grateful for all that we're doing for him. And, he thought that would be the best way to thank us because it was a hot summer day. And I was incredibly touched. He went so far, to the store, grabbed, 10 to 15 water bottles for all of us and had to carry it all back. So that was one of my most and it's the reason why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
It's to be able to serve the community, and it really warms our heart to see the impact as well.
Such purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You will carry that for all the years of your life, right? That memory of having impacted and served the life of another, right? How do you handle challenges in your life when you're pursuing something, Angelina?
Yeah. So just to touch on a little more about, what hyped us and its role within Habitat. So what we do is more beyond the build site. So, with that comes tremendous challenge because we are volunteer led, right? So we try to do as many projects as we can and try to support Habitat in all the different ways where we could help, in fundraising, advocacy, marketing, and so forth. So one of the bigger challenges that I do face with, just with being on the board as well as working full time and all that is being able to gather that energy and sometimes managing my time well. So the way I try to get through it, exactly what you said, that can't is not a word. I, get that out of my dictionary. I wake up early. Loved hearing that you were on the treadmill at 6:30 a.m. Shana, because I am, I'm up at 5 and I want to make sure that, I catch the world before it gets busy.
Yeah.
Being able to just have the mindset, be intentional, and overcome any challenges that might come. Then, nothing seems like a challenge at that point. And, being able to be proactive and reaching out to people, look for creative solutions. Definitely.
Very well said. That be intentional. I've had that conversation with more women than I can count on my fingers. And it's impressive to understand how one word can change the mindset of an individual. The opportunity to be able to take advantage of the day, right? I'm a morning person. I love to be able to get ahead of the world, as you said. And I'd love to hear from our viewers. How do you get ahead of the world? Share some of your stories, best practices. How do you handle challenges? There's no greater way to manage what would be challenges on a work site at Habitat. It's amazing the map that's created on a work site where you're not stumbling over one another. Safety is number one concern. You follow the rules so no one gets hurt. To be able to manage different teams at different times of the month, it's remarkable the amount of management, right? And the course of work. It's like a relay race or a challenging course on a BMX site where you're just riding along and trying to get through those challenges. That's important in life because we can't stop when we're met with a challenge. We have to push through. And I think as women, we want to see and learn from others who practice how they push through. Ariana, I wanted to ask you because Angelina mentioned something about she started with Habitat when she was in middle school. And I know that you work with Donors Choose and the opportunity for more young people at the middle school level to be able to become involved, especially young women who, as we push out the topic of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and how working at a construction site embraces all those industries, to be able to see what would be more young people, more young women involved with Habitat. Or what do you think needs to happen?
I think we need to see it, right? Like you can't be what you can't see. So how do you show these young women? How do you demonstrate that? How do you show them and give them access to see these women who are bosses and who are killing it and doing work that would be traditionally ascribed as a man's work, right? So how do we show that? Where does that access come from? And I love just brainstorming different ideas with people. I love leading brainstorms to see what that could be, right? Is it a field trip to a construction site? Is it a showing them projects to understand, is it social media, right? We know that they love social media. How do we promote certain these women who are doing this work to these young women to see that they can do it too? And I was actually one of our teacher representatives on our board of directors. She's a woman. Her name's Christy, and she's a construction technology teacher for high schoolers who aren't planning to go to college but want a career in construction. And she gets projects funded for jigsaws and wood material and all of this stuff to show her students that they can do it, and they make these things and they sell them in their communities, and the vast majority of her class are girls,
Wow.
because they're looking at her as a female construction technology teacher, and they're more so signing up for this class because they're saying, I can do this too. So how do we get more women in construction, more women who are doing this work in front of young girls? And that's how they're going to gain that access and to know that they can do it too.
That is so true. Angelina, I think we have the next group of women at this particular school that we need to recruit as participants of our work sites with Habitat.
That sounds like a plan. We'll make sure to work on that.
Make it
Our
happen.
future young professionals.
Yeah.
And, just to wind down, we have less than 15 minutes to go. What do you say, or how do you manage and prioritize your mental health and wellness, considering the pandemic, now that we're halfway through what would be the vaccination period of, these uncharted waters, global crisis, that you've been able to push through what could have been a paralyzing moment in our lives? Let's start with Shana.
Sure. What I tried to do whenever I got down was to be grateful for what I have and focus in on gratitude and recognizing that this is a challenge, but this is, gosh, if there's ever a global challenge, this one was it. We were all in this together. So I tried to reflect on the things that I was grateful for, my friends, my family, and then to be forgiving of myself when I wasn't perfect every time. And when if I did get low. And then really, I am a natural extrovert, so I'm not going to lie that the pandemic was a bit of a challenge. And I tried to just be creative on ways that I could create that connectivity, because being with people, having that social connection and that cohesion, that's what gives me energy. That's what inspires me. That's what helps me be excited about things. So I just tried to be very deliberate about having those opportunities for connection, and ultimately just settling back on, I need to be grateful for these certain things in my life, and I need to be patient with how we all get through this, because at some point we will, and just sort of keep that bit of optimism and hope, which is now coming into fruition slowly but surely, and really kind of focusing on those aspects.
I appreciate that so much. Gratitude, hope, just seeing past all of this and the connectivity of people. It goes to show you how we are as humans, how much we yearn for the presence and the touch of another human being. It certainly took me by surprise to understand how lonely it felt, right? And that if you remained mentally in that space, it could have destroyed a person, right? But we're halfway there. I think we're so much better today than we were a year ago. And it's bringing so much more hope than we've ever expected. And we all have a role to play, right? It's not about what the other person is doing, but what are you doing to contribute to that hope, to continue to remain hopeful? Angelina, tell me how you prioritized your mental health and your wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'm kind of on the other side. I've always been a very, very, grateful and proactive and happy person. And, echoing off of Shana's point, that is one of the biggest thing I do, right? Every time I am feeling down, I, count my blessing. And so throughout the pandemic, how I viewed it was, how this, I looked at the value that it added to my life. And I actually got a time to reset myself a little bit. I, don't have obligations to go out and have dinner with my friends. I got the time to take a step back and just prioritize myself first. And, and it brought us all the flexibility of being able to meet online, have board meetings online and be able to learn more, speak with even more people from all over the country. So, that was what, just counting my blessings there and seeing how the pandemic has brought, these new advances to our lives, really has helped me a lot. And, just seeing how the world has come together to combat and react to it. And it's brought me a lot of hope as well.
That's awesome. Ariana?
Similarly, just practicing gratitude, forgiving myself. I think I, like many women, tend to really get down on myself if I'm not getting it all done, right? If one thing slips through the cracks, it's like, why didn't I get that one thing done? Or I had to stop beating myself up, right? At the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, oh, this is the perfect time to lose 10 pounds. No, that's not going to happen. So don't beat yourself up for eating that pint of ice cream, which it sounds silly, but really just forgiving myself, letting myself do what I needed to do, even if it wasn't the most productive thing, whatever I needed to do to put a smile on my face, to be happy. The one practical thing I did was found one thing every day that made me like gut belly laugh, because I needed that, whether that was FaceTiming with my adorable little cousin, or my mom always has my grandmother, as you guys have already seen, is probably the funniest person I know. So whatever I needed to do, to whatever I needed to watch, one thing at the end of the night to make me really laugh, that was probably the one practical thing I had to do to prioritize my mental health. And then I would plan these staycations. I think a lot of people forgot to take their vacation days this year because there was nowhere to go. Take your vacation days and just plan a little staycation for yourself. Make a little spa. I love to bake, so do something. And that was how I stayed sane.
That is awesome. Let me tell you, there was too much baking in my household because the boys would learn to bake bread from scratch, thanks to my mother-in-law, and who passed on the recipe that she's been taught by her mother. And it was just such a beautiful moment that helped me gain much more than I anticipated. But valuing that time was just precious to me. And I appreciate you all sharing a much more deeper insight on mental health and wellness that we tend to not prioritize because we're going and going and going. And this pandemic really pushed us, to take a step back, and, we weren't going anywhere anytime soon. And so if it really opened up what would be an opportunity for all of us to take a moment and stop your tracks of having to constantly be on the move. I want to just end with a very specific question regarding your magic wand. And if you could wave that wand, how would you change? What would be the one thing you would do that would profoundly change the world? Whomever wants to go first. And that's for our audience as well. Share, if you had that magic wand, how would you wave it to change something profound in this world?
I'll have to stick with the Women Build theme and say true gender equality and full closing of the wage gap globally.
Own it. Yes, Shana. Absolutely.
Ensuring women have financial and economic freedom, have full, as Hillary Clinton said, women's rights are human rights. That to me, that's my North Star.
I have to echo that, and just saying eliminating any and all inequality, whether that be gender inequality, racial inequality, truly just true peace, so that we can all just live peacefully together in a world where that's guided by love and peace, not politics. I think that could that would be my magic wand.
Well said.
I completely echo that too. Ever since I was little, and my mom tells me this all the time, I always say how I would love for there to be world peace. I didn't want to step up first because I was thinking in my head, how is that achievable? Like, is that possible? But then I truly do think that, by everyone, being guided by love and peace, that's a really solid foundation where we can create space to think about other issues around the world that, we can begin solving without so much hostility. So I echo that as well.
Cleansing the hearts of hatred, right? The hearts and minds of hatred, right? It just, when you are violent to someone, they become violent, right? And if we could just try to eliminate what is hatred, it starts off with a softer heart, a softer mind, an open mind, right? And so those were wonderful, thoughtful comments and opportunities for us to just continue to embrace one another and appreciate who we are as people. And I want to just take this moment to thank you all as our panelists. Ariana Jacobs, our brand new Habitat for Humanity New York City homeowner extraordinaire, Sydney House owner. I'd like to thank Shana Hennigan, Women Build Council member. We could not have thanked Martha for stinging you as the queen bee to come and do your part, as you said it best, making sure that we're changing the world one moment at a time, and being grateful for being able to do that, to be in the position of doing that. Not everyone has that luxury, and it's a privilege to be a part of Habitat for Humanity. And Angelina Fung, the Habitat Young Professionals Board, soon to be co-chair. The Hype, as they are known for, welcomes all young professionals. And if anyone out there, as far as our viewers are concerned, is interested, please get in touch with us. Reach out to Habitat, reach out to Hype. We're on the website, visit us, and we will make magic happen in this world, as we have done so for so long. The lives of many are being changed, one home at a time. And at this moment, I'd like to just close out by sharing how grateful we are to all our donors, the generosity of all who participated to make this day happen. This is the first day of the Women Build Summit. We hope you can join us again tomorrow. But today we have had a beautiful, honest, raw conversation, perhaps with one of the many women that we want to see in the future. And you're out there, I know you are. Join us for our second day tomorrow, so that you are able to be inspired and inspire others. We hope you're just as inspired as we have been. We are ready to take action. We have been taking action, and we call upon you to join us to take action. Please join our watch party room for our networking session, which is right after this from 12 to 1. The watch party rooms will have a great opportunity for you to connect, to network. Everything Shana, Ariana, and Angelina have mentioned here today. There is an opportunity for you to be able to have that one-on-one with individuals that you want to perhaps have a very close contact with, ask questions that you may not have an opportunity to do so publicly. Take advantage. This is all about you, for you. We want to connect our guests with one another, with our sponsors. A special shout out to Kendra, Scott, and Women Build Council, who are hosting the Watch Party Room, along with all of today's special guests. Kendra Scott's room features a styling session. That sounds very interesting. The Women Build Council room features a conversation about defining your leadership journey. And that journey doesn't take effect one day to the next. That is why it's a journey. So get to know what those steps are. We encourage you to explore all our rooms and join one of the 10 or less guests, so everyone has a chance to connect. This is about intimacy, really shining in your room. I want to just thank you all once again, and I'll see you there.